So, Nirvair, Mukta, since you all are unmuted, can you all just give me a thing that what are you all expecting from this webinar?
Well, my expectations are, it's just fun to listen to you and to see what you have to say, to hang out with you. That's the most, I think that's primarily it. It's also nice to get to know kind of what the psychic weather is and how people are affected. And I was definitely thinking about exactly, just how the astrological climate has been affecting me recently, and just wanting to see if, how that matches with, your reading on it and what other people have to say.
Oh,
so.
Wonderful, wonderful. Because definitely, Nirvair, I'm sure you all will agree with me that students and teachers learn from each other.
Yes, exactly.
The teachers become, I would say, the exposure gets so vivid, especially as adults, that
True.
I have a lot to learn from you guys. And yes, I will be definitely putting across what I feel and what my experience has been over the last 4.5 decades. And with the recent developments, which of course my students who are connecting would come to know in their classes, that how this planetary configuration is so powerful that it helps you understand the universal intelligence nudging us to do a particular thing, and hence these moods and we feel sad, or we feel disrupted, or we feel distracted. And why are things happening to us? Why are we feeling in a different manner? Whereas in actual things are wanting us, we are wanting to do things in a different manner. So if you understand astrology, you will get your answers, and most of your answers you could decipher today once I have spoken about the eclipses, because this phenomena is coming after practically this particular configuration of planets. The way it's happening is coming practically after more than 50 years. Mm-hmm. And suddenly things are different. Suddenly, sometimes you feel invigorated. Sometimes you feel completely clueless of what is happening, and you just learn how to go with the flow. And some people are pulling their hair out, and some people are trying to make ends meet. All those things may be happening to each one of us differently. And today probably I'll be able to throw some light on the eclipses, because it's so important from April 23rd onwards, that how situations have actually been changing, especially when the solar eclipse, just see the sequence. It's solar eclipse, then comes the Pluto retrograde, and now comes the lunar eclipse. So solar eclipse shakes our world, lunar eclipse, our emotions are rattled, and we tend to decipher what actually happened, where it happened, and then realign ourselves. So I am going to start now, and people who are joining in can keep joining in. At the end of my lecture, I would really appreciate if you all could openly ask me any questions. So, which I am definitely going to try my best, to the best of my ability, to answer them and clear all your doubts, and at the same time learn a lot from you all also. So shall we start, Amod?
Good to go on.
So I welcome everyone once again, and appreciate you all connecting with me. Because they say when you have learned things in life, sharing with the world actually makes your learnings more profound. And the way David Cottrell had written that confusion is simply a state of mind brought on by a lack of understanding of a situation. So astrological predictions are basically for those who do not plan. Whereas through the discipline of the planets and the luminaries, the universal intelligence always helps or nudges us towards creating our own prophecies. Now, recently, when the eclipses, we are in an eclipse season. We experienced the solar eclipse last month at the end of the month. Now we are going to experience a lunar eclipse on May 5th. So a lunar eclipse can be an extremely powerful time for cleansing our emotional waters. And then again, forwardly setting intention for the renewal and the rejuvenation in the coming months. Because the energetic cycles of this lunar eclipse tend to extend through the period of next 3 months after its event. So actually we can calculate it. It's May, June, July, August. And Pluto retrograde is till October. And 11th June, precisely till 11th June, the realignment can be done effortlessly as we come to understand what is happening in our life and what requires to change. So now, full moons are already known to amplify your emotions. Since it's a full moon lunar eclipse, full moons already known to amplify our emotions. The lunar eclipses make it even more potent. These rare events occur approximately twice a year in different configurations, and they often create shakeups and shifts that have been building up for some time. The energy is so heightened that it's not advisable to work when it is active. Instead, it is better to step back a little and go out of his way and let it do its own thing. Experience the emotions. So once the dust settles, maybe in another couple of days, we can learn from the experience and possibly even discover a new path forward. Now, in astrology, the moon represents our emotions and the sun represents our core identity and the self-image. So these two luminaries are very powerful in our life, the sun and the moon, and we can't do without them. So during a lunar eclipse, the moon is at its most full and very, very bright, and it is simultaneously battling it out with the shadow part of ourselves. As a result, we may be nudged to see our own shadows, our own patterns, our own behaviors, or issues that play out in our relationship with others and relationship with the situations. But now here, let's first understand all about the eclipses. What the eclipses are and why they are important, what the lunar nodes are and the role they play in the eclipses. Now, our ancestors believed that the darkness swallowed the sun or the moon. They were especially terrified of the solar eclipses as the light of the sun faded to darkness in the middle of the day. So light and darkness are a part of creation. You cannot have one without the other. Similarly, the universe has light and darknesses. We have light and darkness within ourselves. The gods and the demons coexist within ourselves. Now, here I'm going to tell you, interestingly, a very, very interesting story, which according to a Vedic myth, it goes as Manthan. The gods basically decided to churn the ocean to get the elixir of life and become immortal. As they couldn't churn the ocean all by themselves, they asked the serpent demon for help. Now, the gods, led by the sun and the moon, decided to have a party after that to share the nectar of eternal life amongst themselves. And the demons found out, and one of the demons, who was very smart, he disguised himself as God to the party. But just as when he sipped the elixir, the sun god saw him and recognized him, and actually he threw a disc at him, splitting the body into two. Since the demon had already sipped the elixir, he became immortal. Half of the demon became the demon's head, which is the north node, representing ambition, drive, and passion. And the other became the demon's tail, which is the south node, which navigates on instinct. The north node, Rahu, the south node, Ketu. Now, the two half demons cursed the sun and the moon with eclipses. That is the reason the solar and lunar eclipses are times when one of the demons takes control of the sun and the moon, that is the luminaries. Now, the meaning of this eclipse myth is that the serpent cut in half, it's actually a metaphor for the umbilical cord. We separated at birth from a part of ourselves. The part we are separated from is our connection to the infinity, to the universe. This part remains invisible to us, just like the headless tail of the dragon. So the part that emerges to life, the baby that is being born, is similar to the head of the serpent. This part comes into existence with a purpose in life, to contribute to the everlasting, ever-changing story of the universe. Your existence is proof enough that you have the power and the mandate to change the world. The eclipses are nothing else but a reminder that you should stick to your path. You need to fulfill the mission your soul has chosen, the head of the serpent, that is the Rahu, without forgetting where you have come from, which is the tail of the serpent, that is the south node. So basically, eclipses are a recalibration of fate and free will. Now, if you actually reflect on this story, or if you reflect on how I've explained to you, in the churning of the ocean myth, the dragon helps the sun and the moon get the elixir of life because they had asked the help of the demon. However, he's not invited to drink it. So the myth is a metaphor for the demons inside us. They play an important role in our life. However, if we repress our negatives or the demons within us, they will eclipse our lives in very unexpected ways. They will pop out at any time. So you need to reflect on yourself that can you think of instances in your life when your repressed self took over and changed the expected course of your life? A few minutes of reflection will help you understand, and nobody need to know about that. You could actually take a pen and paper and write it down. That can you think of instances in your life when your repressed self took over and changed the unexpected course of your life? Now, you have to understand that the earliest traces of astrology was found 7,000 years ago among the Babylonians. So the king of Babylonia appointed sky observers to figure out when the next eclipse would take place. Normally, I mean, kings always had their pundits and their people who kept observing the sky. There used to be a ritual now in Babylonia when a substitute king would be replaced by a regular person for or during the eclipse period. He would be dressed like a king and placed on the throne. So our ancestors used to trade with fate and manipulate with destiny. There was an element of free will associated with the eclipses. So Babylonians viewed fate and destiny as negotiables. So the substitute king ritual is evocative of the deeper meaning of the eclipses, showcasing how fate and free will have been long debated and spiraled together. As we keep proceeding and keep reflecting, I would say your second reflection after this webinar for yourself should be, what are your ingrained beliefs about fate and free will? Do you believe in fate, determination? Do you believe in your free will? Do you believe in both, a little bit of both? So what is the relationship between fate and free will from your perspective? So the sun, moon, and earth get aligned twice a year, giving us 2 eclipse seasons, and these 2 eclipse seasons are opportunities for realigning your thoughts and your actions. So if we understand the science of the eclipses, we see that what seems to be an unpredictable event is in fact an alignment. What seems a disrupting event from Earth is in fact something completely predictable that makes perfect sense from a cosmic perspective. So seen with the universe's eyes, an eclipse is actually the perfect alignment to do course corrections. So the third reflection that you can do when you'll go back home after the webinar, that oftentimes after we distance ourselves from a particular situation, we see it more clearly, more objectively. The more we develop the ability to move beyond our default operating patterns, the more we are able to depict the big picture and understand casual relationships. Everything makes sense in the grand scheme of things. So what is your reflection? The third reflection can be, can you think of a particular situation in your life when you're absolutely convinced of something, maybe a view you had held your whole life? You know, sometimes we change, our values change, our beliefs change, only to completely change your perspective afterwards. So reflect on that. That have you held a view throughout your life and you realized after a period of time that it completely changed your perspective? So now understand the fundamental role of eclipses. Think about eclipses as special gates that open only at a particular points in life. So during this time frame, that is the eclipse season. Now, our eclipse season has been already started from April 23rd, and it is going well into the next 3 months, the effects of it, whereas the second eclipse took place yesterday, and the effects are still potent. We are basically, during this frame time, we are basically given the opportunity to gain access to information about the larger dynamic process of life, starting with understanding your emotions, not getting baffled by it, but understanding what you're going through. Now, eclipses bring the biggest changes and transformation in one's life. Although these big events don't necessarily happen exactly on the day of the eclipse, they usually happen before, a bit before and a bit after, within the eclipse season, which lasts approximately 6 weeks, or when a transiting planet activates the degree of the eclipse. Now, the sun is the divine masculine, how you project, and the moon is the divine feminine, what you feel inside. So the two are linked to the principle of creation. We are aware that there'll be no life if there is no sun or moon. So during the eclipse season, our individual journey intersects with the path of our destiny. So when an eclipse takes place, you are in fact realigning your path with the higher order of the universe. So eclipses may seem disruptive and put you through tests. An eclipse can either bring you to a breakdown if you cling to the past, or a breakthrough if you open yourself to the change. An eclipse makes you aware of the changes where they are necessary. It offers a window of opportunity to address a certain situation or a condition and outgrow it through your own choices. So the reflection that you will do now, the number 4 reflection, an eclipse can bring a breakdown or a breakthrough. Can you think of a moment in your life when you had a breakdown and of a time when you had a breakthrough? What makes the difference from one to another from your perspective? That's a reflection you need to do on lesson 4. I am getting in some questions. Of course, we'll have a lot of time after the webinar, and I will answer each question clearly and try to clear your doubts. Now, you've learned what eclipses are and why they are important. Now I will apprise you about what the lunar nodes are, the characteristics of the south node, the characteristics of the north node, and what role the nodes play in eclipses. Understanding the nature of the nodes and the fundamental differences between the north node and the south node, they're crucial in your understanding the underlying principles behind eclipses. You had a first encounter with the nodes of the moon when I narrated the mythology of the eclipses, when you learned about the serpent demon Vasuki, about the dragon's head, the north node or Rahu, and about the dragon's tail, the south node or Ketu. So from an astronomical perspective, the lunar nodes are 2 points where the orbit of the moon crosses the ecliptic. The ascending or north node is where the moon moves into the northern ecliptic hemisphere, while the descending or south node is where the moon enters the southern ecliptic hemisphere. So a solar eclipse occurs when the passage of the moon through a node coincides with the new moon, while the lunar eclipse occurs when the passage coincides with the full moon. So a lunar eclipse may occur if the full moon is within 11 degrees 38 minutes, that is of the ecliptic longitude of either node, while a solar eclipse occurs if the new moon is within 17 degrees 25 minutes of the either node. So what is the fundamental role of the lunar nodes and eclipse in eclipse formation? The moon is a mediator between the sun, the divine will, and the mother earth, that is the free will. So lunar nodes reflect where the will of the divine conscious meets the will of the individual. The lunar nodes was somewhere in the sky at the moment when you were born, and that part of your chart is where your life is a constant eclipse. So the north and the south node reveal the continuous threads that run from lifetime to lifetime. Or you could say from life to lifetime. So the south node suggests where you come from and the north node where you are going. The south node reveals a deep-rooted patterns of behavior, the path of least resistance, and it is crucial to move on to the possibilities of the north node, which is actually your path to progress. So just like the eclipses come with regularity, the north and the south node reveal the continuous threads that run from lifetime to lifetime. South node shows where you've come from, what you're familiar with, your inner talents and gifts. The north node always shows where you're going, your ambition, your drive, your free will, your opportunity to change the direction of your destiny. And the south node and the north node are interconnected, so we cannot have one without the other. So this was all about the information of the eclipses, the solar and the lunar, and the nodes and how they affect our life. Now, yesterday, May 5th, 2023 onwards, we had a full moon and lunar eclipse at 14 degrees in Scorpio. Now, this eclipse is a south node eclipse. The south node eclipses are the culmination of our past actions or efforts put in the past, may come to fruition or not, while other things may come to their natural end. So the full moon eclipse in Scorpio is opposite Uranus and Mercury retrograde in Taurus at the moment, and it is trining Mars in Cancer. So with Uranus, it's also squaring Pluto. In that Pluto is in Aquarius, and whereas this is happening in Scorpio, so it is completely in square. With Uranus and Mercury retrograde, things may not go as planned, but sometimes when things don't go as we want them to go, this doesn't mean that they don't go as they should. Perhaps you can reflect or remember a time in your life when things didn't go as planned, but turned out much better than expected. You got fired, but a few weeks later ended up with an excellent job, which was better than from where you got fired. You missed your flight and you met someone who changed your life. So during the eclipse season, things like this happen all the time. In fact, that's exactly what the role of an eclipse is, to change the course of things so that a better superior order is found. So lunar eclipse in Scorpio actually tells you you're at a crossroad. Eclipses happen when the sun and the moon align with the lunar nodes. The lunar nodes are points where the path of the sun and the path of the moon intersect. So the sun and the moon are our identity. The lunar nodes are at crossroads. When we deviate from our life's purpose, that is the sun and the moon, the lunar nodes and the eclipses, they actually happen to bring us back on track. More than ever at an eclipse, we want to go with the flow rather than against it. The eclipse season is not a time to try harder or to stick to a plan no matter what. Eclipses are a time of realignment or readjustment. This is a time of noticing the gentle or not so gentle nudge that the universe is giving you. Now, just think of the astronomy of an eclipse. At a solar eclipse, the shadow of the moon covers the disk of the sun. The day becomes night. At a lunar eclipse, the shadow of the earth covers the moon. Things are no longer the same, neither in the spiritual 5-dimensional world, nor in a material 3-dimensional existence. Life turns upside down. We feel that the life has turned upside down. We cannot prevent an eclipse from happening. Whatever is meant to be will find its way to come into existence. So basically the full moon and lunar eclipse in Scorpio is actually telling us it's fight versus surrender. Which is better, to be aggressive and feel frustrated, or is it to take it low, embrace the situations and surrender? So when we try to control our circumstances, we fight with the universe. And if you're in a fight with the universe, who do you think will win? When we say universe, this is not some external forces outside of ourselves. You are a part of the universe. So when we try to control our circumstances, we are in war with our own selves. When we try to control our circumstances, we are trapped in a little personal bubble. We are disconnected from the universe. We can't even see what's happening around us. When we let go of control, we finally see the things that have been there all along. Basically, the universal intelligence, or I would say the universe or the planets in the universe, they are like actual gods. Gods nobody has seen. And these planets are like gods, always trying to help us because they're always working in a discipline. And the blessings of the God are universal for everyone. How you grab it or how you're open to the graces and then you realign yourself is where your success starts. So the universe is always showing us the signs, but we are blind. We don't want to see them because they go against what we think the reality is. And you must understand, perceptions are not a reality. So even the most amazing opportunity is seen as an obstacle because it doesn't go according to our inner narrative or what we think we should do. So this lunar eclipse happening on the axis of Taurus and Scorpio is a new paradigm. With Taurus and Scorpio, it may be more difficult to see the signs and be open to change. Taurus and Scorpio are fixed, stubborn signs. Their role is precisely to preserve the status quo. The lunar eclipse in Scorpio may test your boundaries and resilience. Here, the goal is not to be less of a Taurus or a less of a Scorpio, but at this lunar eclipse, we want to reinvent our relationship with these energies within our psyche. Scorpio can be the sneaky, manipulative partner who plays the victim to gain control over the relationship, or the loyal companion who stays through thick and thin, not for personal gain, but because they know that intimacy can only emerge when two people meet each other halfway. Taurus can be stubborn, lazy bull who says no, just because it's too much hard work to change. Or the firm boundary setter who knows that value creation requires focus and determination. So full moon and the lunar eclipse in Scorpio is actually nudging us to see the signs, the red flags in our life. You must have, you all must be very familiar with the sentence when we say, I was blind, but now I see it clearly. I was foggy earlier. So moreover, Mercury is retrograde. At the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio, we may feel we are walking blindfolded. We may not have all the information. And that's a good thing, because the information you're so much relying on may be your outdated narrative. Not having to listen to the same old story of Mercury, meaning you create space for new heights and new perspectives, what Uranus tells us, it means basically you are finally able to see the sign, recognizing what is wrong in your life so that you can actually realign it. You've got to realign your own sources. So the lunar eclipse in Scorpio is an incredible opportunity to let go of toxic clinging to what no longer serves us. Whereas at the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio, allow Uranus and the Taurus common sense energy to show you a new way, a better way to conduct your life. This can be as easy as saying no or yes, depending upon the circumstances, as easy as believing that a different outcome is possible for you, but you have to be open to the graces and listen to your heart. You have to be open to the signs. Now, along with the Mercury retrograde, we also have the eclipses in a square with Pluto, and Pluto, that always strives for excellence, went retrograde on May 1st. And it's going to be retrograde in Aquarius till June 11th, and then gets into Capricorn, a hard taskmaster, till October 10th. After that, it goes forward. But this Pluto is more potent when it is spinning backwards. So like plants and animals, we all have a fate encrypted inside us. Call it genetic code, hereditary traits, or a psychological inheritance that has been passed down through the generations. There is a deep, dark part of us that already knows the end of the story before it plays out. It's a part of us that knows that certain things were meant to be, that other things cannot be helped, and that there are make or break times in life when it either all comes together or falls apart. So if the sun symbolizes the self in your horoscope, the person you're always growing into, then Pluto symbolizes that seed. And like a seed, Pluto carries the knowledge of everything that's come before. Pluto knows what shape you will take, the things you need to survive and thrive, and that you have to push through the darkness, because if you don't, you will surely perish. It's Pluto's job to get you through the rough passages. And it's the eclipse's job to make you aware, to come face to face with your truth. It does this at the beginning of life when you're squeezing through the birth canal. It does this when every crisis you face, every trauma you suffer, and every accident you walk away from. And it does this at the end of life when it's time for your body, soul, and spirit to part company and go their separate ways. So Pluto symbolizes the will to live that's greater than conscious choice, resolve, or hope, a will that's so indefatigable that it insists there's life after death. Now, since Pluto is in Aquarius from 2023 till 2044, you need to know a little bit about this before I open you all for the question and answers. And you don't believe in fate. Destiny is what you make out of it. If people can reshape their bodies to match who they are underneath, it only makes sense that they can design their own futures. All of this requires is making more informed choices about where to go from here. But how informed are those choices? Better life through technology seems like a no-brainer until you realize that our capacity to create things has outpaced our ability to make good decisions. We can modify food, alter the genetic code of species, and even talk about transhumanism without sounding like a high scientific fiction. nerd, but does any of this make us better people? Just because we are capable of something doesn't mean we are meant to do it. Our history is full of Pandora's boxes that we keep opening as if they were Christmas presents tucked under the tree. So it's the nature of Pluto in Aquarius to see the future as a better place and the past as something in need of corrections. Course corrections have to be done, if not casting off altogether. But a future without a past is doomed to repeat it. So the Pluto in Aquarius basically points towards it transforms, especially for the Aquarian suns or the rising sign, by approaching matters holistically. It torments Capricorn and Pisces suns or the rising suns when it gets too far ahead of itself. It plays for the keeps with Aries and Sagittarius suns by pushing the boundaries. It grapples with Taurus and Scorpio suns over ideological differences. It regenerates Gemini and Libra suns when they defy expectations. It's anyone's guess with Cancer and Virgo suns because it enables them to step out of the situation, sometimes good because it makes them impartial so that they don't take things personally. Sometimes it can be bad because they are eliminating the very things that makes their insight special or gives them profound knowledge. It opposes the Leo suns because Leos see others as them. So when Pluto is opposite your sun sign or the rising sign, that is the Leo sun sign or rising sign, you don't connect to its energy naturally. So you will always be overpowered by it until you do. The best way to engage this energy is to meet people individually. Talking one-to-one will do a lot of breakdown prejudices and assumptions and maybe even open your mind up to other points of view. So with all this mayhem of Pluto and Mercury retrograde, sometimes people freak out. And actually it's Pluto, Mercury, and Uranus retrograde. But remember, perceptions are not a reality. If you know how to work with Mercury retrograde, you can end up turning this cycle to your advantage long-term again and again. Mercury and Pluto retrograde and eclipses, which has a repetition, can be used to re-steer your life. So as retrogrades and eclipses change direction and in retrospect makes us come face to face with our truth, with our deepest feelings, so can we make use of this opportune time, realign our energies and progress towards making success of our life. Since everything is happening in the Taurus season, let us embrace the bull inside each one of us, or the demon, I would say, demon with a good heart, and make friends with this steady, resourceful, and productive energy. Even if you may not actually initiate something new, you may want to wait for Mercury direct on May 15th. This is nevertheless a time to seed a new idea, do away with the past. It's a culmination or a new project. Pay attention to any thoughts, news, or insights. The lunar eclipse is opposite Uranus, so the final outcome may not be what you anticipate. Maybe if you remove the fear and anxiety, you could actually end up doing something wonderfully productive for yourself. Whatever happens around this eclipse, it's meant to be. There's no need to fear anything. Be open to embrace the changes. Be open to the graces of the universal intelligence.